Last year, I bought a $200 wrecked Miata, turned it into a street legal go-kart, put an eBay turbo on it, road tripped it over 1,000 miles, got it on one of my favorite shows, and blew it up in the desert. And now we're gonna do it all over again. What's happening? So we just got another project car, not like we needed another one because of all the stuff sitting here. It's a fun one, another Miata. And you're not gonna believe what is under the hood, but we're gonna check that out a little bit later. Even though the first one's not done, I've kind of always wanted to build another Miata cart or some kind of cart. Like that's always been the plan since we built this first one. The first one right here. So I've always thought that I would buy any Miata that has the title, no matter what condition it is in, if it's say $500 or cheaper, even without seeing it. If it has a title, I'll take it. No matter how bad it is, we could cut it up and build one of these. And this one's not really done and it's blown up. We're gonna fix it and we're actually gonna paint it sometime this year, hopefully. This is what we scored this week. Maybe it's 95. It's either 95 or 96. Plan was I was gonna buy it and we were gonna build another Miata cart. But when I got there to look at it, it's actually just, I think it's way too nice to cut up. Despite this bad paint job that's, you know, just got some primer and has some interesting stuff on it. It's actually in really great shape. I don't really see any rust on it. There's little stuff like this. That's the first dent that I found. So there's a dent there. It's almost completely straight. I don't even see like door dings in the car. I think we're not gonna cut this up. And I'm gonna show you what's under the hood here in just a second too. Story with this car, this thing was sitting in a garage and you can see there, it hasn't been registered since 07. So I would assume that this thing has been sitting in a garage since 07. The owner started doing some stuff, an engine swap, passed away suddenly, and it's just sat. I was able to pick it up pretty cheap. So big thanks to the family that let it go. I know that it was probably special to them, probably like a lot of the cars that we have here are special and have like some sentimental values. But I decided once I got here that I'm not gonna cut it up. Let's talk about the plans, but first I'll show you what's under the hood. This is a Chevy 4.3 V6. Almost the exact same engine that would have been in this truck. It's in there, and that's about it. I mean, as much as I would love a LS swapped or V8 swapped Miata, I might just roll with that. I think that would be interesting. The Miata only had like little over 100 horsepower, 120 or whatever if it was a 1.8. Pretty sure these were about 180, but made way more torque down low. A couple mods, this thing could put out way more. It's pretty filthy, but all of the 4.3 V6 stuff is in here. And it's one of those early 90s GM TBI motors that's got like the throttle body with the 2 injectors on top. And something like this, it's gonna be kind of a bear to tune because you had to physically take out the chip out of the computer. You had to get a UV eraser, erase the chip with UV light, burn the chip in a chip burner, then stick it back in the PCM, you know, do your whole tuning, logging cycle all over again. And that just seems like a hassle. I don't want to go and buy all that equipment again. What I might do is do like a micro squirt setup. And if it doesn't work, then you can use that micro squirt setup on just about anything. You can use it on an LS swap or whatever. So here's the plan. This is what I want to do with this thing instead of cutting it up and turning it into another Miata cart. I really love like 70s IMSA and Trans Am, like vintage looking race cars. If you've ever seen those things, they have crazy fenders. They're doing like this whole wide body thing going on. Wide body stuff is pretty in right now, especially with the bolt-on fenders that people put on the sides. They just put some over fenders on right here. There's a couple cars that have kind of inspired me and I've wanted to do something similar. One of those, if you've never seen, is this car called the Scraptona. So I met the guy on Hot Rod Power Tour that built the Scraptona, and he kind of walked me around the car and showed me all this really cool stuff that he did. And the way they built that car was really cool. I want to get some like 10 or 12 inch wide rims, super wide, 15s like the vintage Japanese style, maybe even 16s that will come out pretty wide. What I think would be cool to do is to section this fender out and add an inch or two to the width of that fender. Then you would get, it would stick out in front of the doors, but you'd have like this kind of IMSA looking wide body thing going on. Then also do the metal work on these, have actual metal fender flares. And then if we come over to the back, I kind of want to do the same thing, some sort of cut and add an inch or two along the back here. Have some sort of almost like fender vent where it sticks out. You get the inch there, push that fender flare out for some super wide tires. All this makes me wish that I would have cut a little nicer on the other Miata and saved the rear quarters. But first I want to see how like a wider rim fits. I mean, that's just a 205 on what I think is an 8.5 rim. So imagine if these were 9.5, 10, or 12s. Imagine it being that much bigger. I think that's just about what I'm looking for. Let me know in the comments anything we should be looking at, like those cool inspirational cars that might help on this build, or maybe you just think we should cut this thing up anyway. Let me know. See you later.